I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord. You might know that as the Apostles' Creed. If you don't know it, that's okay. We're going to put a link in the description. But this is a small talk on big question of the Apostles' Creed. Who wrote it? When was it written? And did the Apostles have anything to do with it anyway? Let's talk about that. So what is a creed then? That's not a word we use very often. And simply put, a creed is a statement of what we believe or what we agree to. In this case, it's a creed about what we believe of God. The challenge with that, of course, is that words don't do well in explaining the unexplainable. And that's what we say God is completely unknowable, even if we know parts of God. Think of it this way. If you were to explain you to someone else, what would you say? What words would you use? It'd take a lifetime of words. And if God is so infinitely more complex than even we are, then how difficult is it for us to use words to explain who God is? See, language has one wonderful problem in that it really can't describe who God is, not with human symbols and human minds. That does not keep us from trying, though. We're always going to try to talk about who God is. And some of those ways of talking about God stick around in traditions, such as the Apostles' Creed. This also makes dance and song and music and whatever else very important in our expressions of who God is. They kind of talk about God in ways that words can't. One of the challenges then is, how do we use those words? And one of the ways we can use them is for a joyous expression of who God is. That's the way the original Apostles' Creed, the early form, was used. It was a joyous expression of, we are people of Jesus Christ and not people of the world. However, sometimes we use words to limit what can be and limit who Christians can be, and that has been part of the history of the Apostles' Creed. It was written by the winners of a particular argument about the Trinity makeup. You can see one of those videos, by the way, that we made on the small talk with big questions about the Trinity and some of the history there. But when it's used to limit who we are, it's not quite as joyous of an expression. The point is that the creed was written for a particular time in a particular place for particular people about how they envisioned God. And that reason is varied, as is our many reasons for using the creed today. So the question was, when was the Apostles' Creed written, and did the apostles have anything to do with it? Well, Thomas didn't write it on Tuesday after the resurrection on Sunday. That pretty much we know. But it's old. I mean, like really, really old. It probably came at first about the 2nd century, and then over the next 600 years developed until the Catholic Church put a final version together about the 8th century. And since then it's been translated and shifted here and there until we have our versions today that we say in church if we do recite them. So why is it called the Apostles' Creed then if Thomas or whoever didn't write it? Well, somewhere along the way, it became a tradition that each of the lines would be a representation of one of the 12 disciples, the 12 including Matthias, of course, instead of Judas. And that's how it got its name, Apostles' Creed. We'll link, by the way, which line is associated with which one of the disciples. So even though words can have a limiting effect, what benefits are there to the Apostles' Creed? Well, number one, it is a beautifully written creed. It is powerful. It's a fantastic statement about who we believe God to be in all of creation and the presence from creation, in fact, to salvation. And the second thing is this. It is a unifying statement in that everybody that says this is believing the same thing. And then it's a unifying statement across time and space. For 1,500 years or more, we've been saying this, and it ties us tightly together. And then it's also a reminder, a foundational statement about who God is. And so when we have those moments that we wonder, we can always turn to it and remember the immense wonder that God is to us. I would love, by the way, in the comments for you to tell us why the creed is important to you. Why has it been foundational in your life? And then also click the like button and the subscribe button. And look, Mom, I'm a YouTuber. So is it perfect? No, the creed's not perfect. It's not Jesus. It's not perfect. So there are some questions that we can ask of it. For instance, Why does it go from born of the Virgin Mary to suffered under Pontius Pilate like nothing happened in the middle? Well, some would say maybe that it's not the question it was trying to answer. Others might say, yeah, it should have put it in there. But either one, what we recognize is that creeds aren't the stopping point of our faith. They are wonderful and they're needed, but we also have to ask the questions of the faith as well. So where's the mystery in the Apostles' Creed? There's great strength and great power in knowing God by attempting to define God. But there's also great understanding of the faith when we remove God from the boxes that we put God in. Words are inadequate to describe God, but understanding God is important. So using the words, but also balancing that with mystery, having a creed, but balancing that with the questions is incredibly important in walking in our faith. The other thing about words is that they can be used and then misused and misconstrued. And there's evidence of that in the Apostles' Creed. If you remember in the Creed, it says that Jesus died, was buried, and then was in hell for 3 days. That's a little bit problematic. The writers of the Creed, to justify that line, lifted Ephesians 4:9, which actually says nothing about Jesus' death and resurrection. It was about Jesus' birth. And so, are the writers of the Creed perfect? Well, probably not. They probably missed on that one. However, it does require us to ask another question, which is, how much do we have to believe sometimes to be full believers? And that returns us to the language of faith. What do we have to believe to be believers in God? Who gets to define that? And what do we require others to believe before we treat them like they're believers? The issue becomes that words can't define an undefinable creator. So I guess then there's this. Rather than using creeds as a definition of God, or maybe even more cynically, rather than using creeds as a definition of what people have to believe to be a part of the church, maybe we should just use it as a joyous expression of who God is. And that allows us to see God in so many other beautiful ways too. God bless.